Hi, I'm Matt Carpenter, your co-host of Old College Try the podcast. Today, we're talking about financial aid award letters, offers, okay? We got into these colleges. What are we looking at? What's a grant? What's a scholarship? What's a loan? How do I translate these things? They're very confusing. We're going to walk you through that. And once we do get an offer, what are the next steps? And even if you're an underclassmen parent, we're going to still hit on some things that I think you should be thinking about and paying attention to now. Okay, Peggy, podcast number 2 of the new year, right?
Of 2026. We're off and running. It doesn't feel like it's the first full week of January, but it is.
I was just telling the gals, it's clear that vacation is over now. It feels like we're fully in the mix.
I know, at CAP, there's no slow glide into anything. It's just boom, we're there.
Shot out of a cannon, baby.
Oh, exactly.
So, Peggy, I know where your allegiances lie. College football. We're all Hoosiers all the time, right? By the way, we need to talk about that impressive showing.
I know.
Or a week or so ago.
Go Hoosiers. Go Hoosiers.
What about the NFL? Is it Seahawks? Is it Seattle? Who you going to be pulling for?
My hubby is big. It's hard to get the Seahawks down here, so he was able to watch the game this past weekend, but it's just it's there. I mean, I love football, but I don't really go. When I was young, right out of college, for some reason, I was a Redskins fan. That they don't even exist as the Redskins anymore, and we know where you are, Chargers all the way. Although Chargers in front of Patriots is what I heard yesterday.
It's going to be a weird week for me to be in Gillette. Let's be clear, born and raised a Pats fan, and if my brother goes somewhere else next year, that's my new favorite team. But,
Virginia Tech was go Hokies a bit ago.
Hokies, go LSU, go Penn State, go Houston Texans, who knows. So, but this week, Peggy, let's go Chargers. Bolt up, baby. Okay.
Chargers and Hoosiers all the way, baby.
That's it.
All the way to national champ. I wish they were playing in the Fiesta Bowl. I looked it up and I was like, because I was like, I'm going up to Phoenix if they're playing it up there, but they're not. They're playing in Atlanta. So
next year, pal.
Not gonna do
all right. So look at this, we're fairly focused with what we want to talk about today. And, we're really talking about the class 2026, but even if you're a little bit younger, your students, not quite at senior year here, I think it still makes sense to stick around because some of this stuff you can't hear early enough. So again, yes, we're a little bit focused on class 2026, but even if you're earlier, I think stay tuned. So just turn the corner on the new year, just give us kind of the overview, Peggy. Class 2026, where are we right now? Where are we in the process? And obviously there's a couple different stages, but just quickly walk us through.
Yeah. So depending on how your child, or if you're the student listening, how you applied for admission, you could have already heard from the college if you were early decision, which is the earliest deadline. If you were admitted, deferred, or got a no. And we talked about that on a previous podcast. So if unfortunately you got to know, please go listen because we really talked all through that. So go look up that episode. If you applied early action, those admission decisions are coming. It'll be later this month into the beginning of February. And if your regular decision, you're not going to hear till probably the end of March. Could be the beginning of April. But that's where you are with seniors. I will just throw in so that, I know we have a lot of listeners, all different ages to your point, at grades in high school. If you're a junior or sophomore, you're in that planning mode of thinking about affordability and building the list with personal, academic, and financial fit in mind. But what we're talking about today and this month, if you have a junior, you're going to be in it in a year. So as Matt said, it's a good thing to just hear it because it's a step in the process that anybody in high school who's applying to college is going to go through. So that's where we are. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, on that note, just to kind of double down on that point because I think for most people, they're surprised to hear this, but if you're a class 2028 family, you actually just started what's called your base income year. The meter just started running on the calendar year, the tax year that these colleges are going to be looking at. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm way ahead of the game. Actually, you're fully in it, even if you're a sophomore. If you're a junior, you just finished, right? 2025 was the tax year that they're going to be looking at. And of course, again, even if we are a freshman class 2029, again, we're less than a year. So I think that's important to just be aware of, right? Hyper aware of, because that base income year sets the foundation, has a lot to do with, of course, what you're going to pay freshman year of college, but really, all 4 years. Yes, you have to reapply each year, but the foundation is kind of the most pivotal year, right? So just more of an
And
FYI.
just to double down on that, just so people, because we throw out these words. When the colleges look at you, they look at your income and your assets. The income, rental income is by far the biggest driver for almost every family. So what Matt's saying is the income they're gonna look at if you have a sophomore in high school is 2026. So we just entered it. So you need to understand that because you don't want to increase your income if you can avoid it. Of course, you get a raise, you get a new job, you get that's all lovely. But yeah, you don't want to increase it. And for freshmen, 29s, there's planning things that you want to do before that base year starts, which we can support you on at College Aid Pro. So it's like the last thing parents are thinking about, or financial aid forms when they have a sophomore and how they're going to look at me. But yeah, this is insider tip. You will save yourself a lot of stress by just understanding that simple. It's called prior year. That's what we call it in the industry. So just keep that in mind. So that's a great point for us to bring out, not intimately related to what we're talking about today, but great point for people with younger kids in high school.
Get those ducks in a row. So we talked a little bit previously about, or maybe it was 2 episodes ago, about kind of deferment, wait list, best practice, right? Because some of you folks, right, are just kind of, you're in a holding pattern, right? You're deferred, so we got to wait until the regular decision comes out. I'm wait listed. Wow, now I might even have to wait until after May 1st, or maybe our regular decision. And again, we're just kind of like playing with our hands, which is always a weird feeling because you guys have been going at supersonic speed basically since August 1st, the Common App, and finalizing that list of colleges, and then our financial aid app. So I think there's always a I don't know, like a
A lull.
yeah, yeah, and it's a little bit uncomfortable because it's like I feel like there should be 100 things to do. For a lot of you, there's nothing to do right now. We are literally just in that holding pattern. If you want to be extra diligent, email the colleges, call the colleges. Do you have everything you need from us? Right? That's always a good thing to do. Help you chill out a little bit further. But again, in terms of if you're deferred or waitlisted specifically, we talk about some best practices. The in summary, reach out to your admissions counselor and see what you can do and be proactive to help you when it comes to regular decision time, when it comes to waitlist time. But let's talk about for the folks that have been accepted already and they've got some type of financial offer. Right? We're going to talk about the financial aid award letter, but there's some confusion here. And Peggy, why don't you just talk about and just to finish my thought, and then you can take it away. But some colleges, when you get accepted, you get a scholarship offer if you've been awarded one, either right then or pretty soon after the acceptance. But that's not your full financial aid award letter. So we get a ton of confusion from families being, is my final offer? Is something else coming? So why don't you just talk about the few different ways that colleges handle that?
Yeah. So when you get accepted, obviously your child gets a acceptance letter, an acceptance email, whatever the college does, saying, congratulations, you got in. Sometimes, not all the time, in that letter, it'll say, and double congratulations, you got the $100,000 Provost Scholarship, which means the college is giving your child $25,000 a year in merit scholarships. Has nothing to do with your ability to pay. You might be a millionaire, honestly, and you can write a full check, but the college doesn't care. They want your child basically, so they're already discounting their costs, which is nice. It's nice for affluent families to get a discount there. That is not the final offer from the college. The thing that's easy to look for so you know is that comes from the Office of Admissions exclusively. When you get your final offer, that comes from the Office of Financial Aid. And a merit scholarship, if your child was awarded one, that will be part of that award. But the financial aid office goes to work once you submit your financial aid forms and puts together what we call the full financial aid package, or what is called the full financial aid package. So you'll see it's from the Office of Admissions. You might see merit on it. You might see Institutional grants, need-based grants. You will most likely see some mention of loans, federal loans. You might even see a school loan. You might see work study. If you see loans, that's the trigger for you to say, yep, that's what Peg and Matt were talking about. That's that financial aid award letter. And just a plug for our software, these are confusing. There's over 900 versions of them. You can upload that into our free software. We will translate it for you. So you don't have to be like, oh, what does this mean? What is this? You just hit translate, you upload it from your computer, and you're good to go. But that's what you got to wait for to actually do the appeal. You
Yeah,
want to add anything there?
I do. A couple things. So, number one, not only will we translate it, we'll tell you, did you get a good deal, right? How likely is it that we can go back to this college and get some additional money? So, important kind of additional layer there. I will second your point, and usually how I coach this, if a family's like, how am I supposed to know if this is my final offer? I always say, if and this is holds true for everybody, right? If you've completed the FAFSA, you are entitled to, guaranteed essentially, to be offered that federal direct student loan. That's what it'll say. Federal direct student loan, in most cases, it's going to total $5,500. If we see that, that tells us, again, you said it, Peggy, but I'm just saying in my words, the this is the all in quote unquote offer. Okay. Now, there are some exceptions there. Some colleges are these quote unquote no loan marketing gimmick schools, right? That you won't see that included in your award letter. So that, again, there's very few of those, and they're the exception rather than the rule. But again, generally speaking, we see that $5,500 federal direct student loan for an entering freshman. Here it is. Now it's time to appeal, because this is the offer.
And it's from the Office of Financial Aid. Also, ideally, you're going to see their cost of attendance on there. You'll never see that from Office of Admissions. And
Mm.
ideally, it breaks it down and says, here's our tuition and fees, room and board, books, travel. They'll break it down in their direct and indirect expenses. I keep saying ideally, because some of these awards are awesome. There's some that are mediocre, and there's some that honestly are abysmal. They're very hard to understand. They might not even have the current cost of attendance. It might be a lower number, and you'll notice it'll say estimate everywhere. And part of that, in the college's defense, is they don't set, like, if you have a senior, they haven't set the exact cost of attendance for next fall yet, so the estimate, but they should be using the most recent one. So that's another tip off. There's way more information on the financial aid package than you're gonna see on a merit scholarship admission letter.
Now, so it's not uncommon that for some of these colleges we'll be offered both a merit-based scholarship and some component of grant money, right? Free money that's tied to our student aid index, our family's financial situation. So I think
Yep.
oftentimes the perception is, call it whatever you want. What do I care if I get $15,000 in scholarships and $15,000 in a need-based grant, institutional grant? I got $30,000. Why should families pay attention? Why does it matter if it's a grant or a scholarship, in your opinion, if you think it does matter, assuming you think it
Yeah,
matters?
yeah, it 100% matters, because almost always merit scholarships are offered for all 4 years. Like the example I said earlier, congratulations, you got your provost scholarship for 100 grand. They're not giving that student 100 grand a year. They're telling the student, we're giving you 25 a year. Long as you maintain a certain GPA, you're good to go. And that's great for parents. You got that 25,000 each year on your 4-year view of the affordability of that college. Need-based aid, those institutional grants that you're talking about, Matt, not so. Every year there's very few colleges that lock in need-based aid. Gonzaga used to do it, and don't quote me that they still do, because I haven't checked with them in several years, but it's rare. They will assess that every year, which could be to your benefit if your financial situation worsens. If it gets better, it won't be to your benefit, but it is what it is. So if you look at something that they might call a scholarship, honestly, and you think, oh, well, that's merit, good. Peg and Matt told me 4 years, and it's not. They're playing around. They're calling a grant a scholarship, and you make that assumption, and then you get a promotion. that is going to go bye-bye the next year potentially. So it's really, when in doubt, make sure you know from the college. Sometimes it's very obvious. Like if you get a letter saying you got the provost scholarship, you know that's merit. But if it's not obvious and you're not sure, definitely take the time to know, because it's a very, one's guaranteed most of the time, and if you don't see that in the fine print, make sure the merit's guaranteed. The other absolutely is not. So that's why it really matters.
Yep, and just a couple additional comments. You hear us say all the time, this is a 4-year this is a 4-year investment, right? And sometimes more, of course. And I think most consumers are just kind of staring at this first year, especially when it comes to any need-based grants. We need to look out, right? Because maybe this was high this year because we already had another one in college, or maybe it's low, but it could go up because we're going to have one in college in 2 years, or maybe, again, my base income year was abnormally low. So great, I got a nice award freshman year, but it's going to be cut in half in years 2, 3, and 4. So these are the things that we need to be assessing before we go all in, right, on a school and accept the offer. Based on that, we do have to be thinking a couple steps ahead, right, and have a clear indication of, is this an anomaly, right, for my need-based grant based on the variables in my life, or is there a reasonable expectation this is going to be about the same for all 4 years? Unforeseen things happen. But again, if we should have a reasonable expectation of what that's going to look like. And just a comment on the merit-based scholarships, right? To your point, Peg, just about all of them will say, hey, this is good for all 4 years, so long as you maintain a 2.75 GPA or whatever. And you'll see a variation there. And they're usually not too high in terms of what you need to maintain. They want the kids to keep it, right? But they want to also make sure that they're doing something to earn that discount.
Yeah.
What we see with some frequency, if they don't hit that GPA freshman year or maybe first semester, something like that, which again is not terribly uncommon as kids adjust to their new world, is oftentimes appealable at least once. So just keep that in your back pocket. If your kid misses that GPA the first year, the first semester, and they take it away, it is usually appealable. We see most schools be pretty lenient, but it's usually, one strike type of deal. Okay, but you got to bring it up next semester, next year, whatever it happens to be. So just to make a comment there, that if they do lose it, it's not necessarily, again, another thing that's appealable in this whole thing.
Yeah, I would be careful just on a parenting, because I've seen this, going too all in to pressure your kid, like, oh, you got to maintain it. Because I've had a couple kids that were capable, but they just got way too in their head. And then they missed it because they were focused on it. And your child just needs to do their best. To your point, Matt, they don't say you have to have a 3.98. They don't want you to leave. Once they accept you, they want that net revenue coming in, and they want their retention stats to be good. You just, to be totally honest, right? That doesn't benefit them for rankings or anything else. So they're aligned with you. They don't want you to leave. But then again, they don't want a kid who's like got a 2.0, who's pulling like a John Belushi in Animal House sort of thing and is sitting on merit aid, right? So that's where it is basically. So, but
Oh,
it's a wonderful thing. So
okay. So what are some things when if you're coaching up a family, what are some red flags when it comes to these award letters, right? What do if there's anything that you share with families to say, hey, buyer beware here, be careful for this, pay extra attention here, any kind of things that you're having families, be really diligent with here?
yeah, you wanna, but I mentioned this initially, you wanna make sure that the cost of attendance that they're sharing is accurate and complete, because what they'll typically do is say, just, "We cost 70,000 all in." They'll take this stuff out and they'll say, "This is your cost." Well, if the 70 is way off because they are only including tuition and not the other 25,000, that's going to be a problem. The biggest thing I've seen though, and colleges do this, where you mentioned, Matt, like you're going to see those federal direct student loans on almost every offer. There's two different versions, but the total for freshman year for most kids, like you said, is 5,500. There's also a plus loan. It used to be called a parent plus loan. That can be on there, right? There's new limits and everything with OBBB, the act that was passed. But what colleges will do sometimes is they will subtract that from that 70,000 and say, your cost is 35. And the parent will say, well, okay, I've saved about 30 a year, so that's not too much of a delta. And they don't realize, no, that's all loans, or a lot of it is loans, and only 5,000 is a grant. That's why it's so important to understand every line item. People could argue. I remember when I used to do these presentations live way back when, before COVID, I had a parent one time raise his hand and he was mad. He was like, so these are deliberately misleading sometimes. And I said, yeah, sometimes they are. But now you're in the know, you know what to look for. Again, put it into our software because that's all built in to our dev, and it'll do the work for you basically. But I'm sure you've seen that time and time again too, Matt,
Well, and I
people do
mean,
that.
I'll name names here. Now they're not alone. It's just whatever popped in my head, and they get a huge volume of applications every year. UC Davis, right? University of California, Davis, very popular school, great school, right? And how they're historically, maybe they'll get it right this year, but historically, how they've presented their financial aid awards is essentially, and if you're out of state, right, call it 70 grand to go to any of the UCs. And they will basically, a lot of families, and believe me, I've been on the front lines for these conversations, they think they're going there for free. They think they're getting a full scholarship because it'll say at the top 70 grand, and then it'll say all these things that are coming off the bill, including the plus loan, and say you owe $0, right, to
It
come
says
here.
remaining costs,
Remaining cost,
$0, literally.
$0. And again, I'm picking on them. They're not alone, but and again, people might be hearing this and being like, "I'm more astute than that. I would, that they wouldn't fool me." Buyer beware here. It's not that, Peg, you know this. We've seen tens of thousands of these awards, and every year we will still look at some of these and being like, "What? What is the offer?" Right? I'm still not sure what I owe
Yeah.
at the end of the day, type of deal. So anyways, that's one you just got to be hypersensitive of. Yes, the difference between a grant and a scholarship matters, and it's important, and you should understand it, but you really need to know what is a loan, because a lot of people just assume financial aid is not a loan. Yes, it is. Okay, in the college's vernacular and their terminology, okay, it is financial aid, right? But we're going to be paid back plus points and all that. So anyways, can't emphasize that enough. The one other thing that I'll say, it's not the same scale, not the same magnitude, but I think a little bit more common and frustrating for families, is that if your student has been awarded a work study job, okay, so they are included in as part of their financial aid package, and maybe it's $4,000 is a fairly common dollar figure. Okay, you're getting $4,000 in work study, awesome, and $2,000 a semester, and that's how it's presented. Like, okay, $4,000, everybody's happy. And the assumption is, and I don't blame people because again, I understand how these things are presented, is that like I'm getting $4,000 taken off my bill. No, you're not. That's not coming off your bill at all. What they are saying is your student has an opportunity to apply for a work study job, which they may or may not get, and we are making an assumption, an estimate, that they could earn up to $2,000 a semester, $1,000 over the course of a year, that they're just going to get, usually in a biweekly paycheck. Again, one of these things, like we're talking about between $2,000 and $5,000, not this huge amount, but as people are planning and especially looking at 4 years, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, $16,000 that I thought was coming off the top is not even close. So that's just another one that can, I think, cause some frustration and confusion on award letters.
To that I've seen kids get awarded 5,000, 5,500 in work study money, which sounds awesome, even if they understand everything you just explained. But I had a kid once, and she was like, "I can't do my schoolwork, work that much, and enjoy school. There just aren't enough hours in the day to make that amount of money." So that's another thing to think about. The other thing I'll add on, as being a planner, if you're going to count this, you understand it's not coming right off the bill, like Matt said, but your child's going to get a paycheck. If you're really going to count this against the cost, you have to have a disciplined child, which is a good thing to teach them. And when that money comes in, it pays for books, or it goes to you so that you pay for. Otherwise, it's going to end up being beer and pizza money. It's going to fall down into the black hole, and it's not going to be used for that. You keep that in mind with work study as well. And you made a great point. It's not guaranteed. Then your child has to go apply for the jobs. So it
Right.
isn't the same. If you say yes to a loan, half each semester with minus the origination fees coming off. Same thing merit, half and half, need half and half, or quarterly, it's 3 times, but not with work study. So yeah, there are extra steps there to make that happen.
Yeah, we get the question a fair amount. Should we do work study? Should we not do work study? Right. Obviously, that's big time a household decision, individual decision. My kind of general take on it is that number one, if you're offered it, throw your hat in the ring. There's zero harm in applying. I think the intent for these jobs, right? Hence the name, is that yes, these kids are working. They're earning, a small paycheck. They're not getting rich doing this here, right? But they're doing something in which they can study at the same time, right? They're sitting at the rec center checking IDs. They're sitting at the library. So like these are not like labor intensive things. In some ways, for some kids, it makes it's like forced studying almost. I have to sit here. I might as well, get some things done. So but again, they're not all like that. Not all work study jobs are created equal. I basically coach it like, hey, if you get one of those jobs, I think there's a lot to be said for it. You're meeting other people that aren't just in your dorm, especially as a freshman. Again, if you're doing something that's more labor intensive where you can't study at the same time, then I'm like, you're not making a lot of money here. Go wait tables, you're going to make more money, but of course you can't study at the same time you're doing that. Again, every family's got to do their own kind of inventory. Am I putting too much on my kid? Are they playing sports? Is this like again, a labor intensive lift, or is this a mail it in job? And, so that's how I answer it. I don't know if
Yeah,
you have.
to your point, you know your child, right? With mine, they weren't awarded work study, but if they were, I'd be like, "Okay, we're definitely not doing that first semester." Like, get your feet wet, get into figuring out what college is, the step up on the intensity of the academics, yada, yada, right? That was my take and my husband's as parents. But I had friends that were my roommate freshman year. She was working in the graduate library. That was her job. And she didn't get a choice. I mean, that was part of being able to afford it for her family. So everybody gets to figure it out. Some people are like, yeah, it's going to be great for my kid. Too much time on their hands. I want them to have, this 3 hours a week where they're working. So to your point, it is totally a decision that families get to make. And just so you understand, we were talking about merit, scholarships, and need-based grants. This is part of a need-based package. So that's the colleges like to throw this in because then they're meeting need on paper, but it's not coming out of their pocket, right? It's not a grant. So it's a federal program. And what's nice about it from a financial aid standpoint is that income that your child makes is not going to be included to figure out if you have need-based aid in subsequent years. Whereas if your child goes in waitresses, like Matt was saying, that's a regular job. So that's W-2 income that your child will put on like a CSS profile or a FAFSA.
Good
So
point.
that's just a little insider information about really what work study is and how it plays out in financial aid. So the advantages of it.
Good point, Peggy. We are officially financial aid nerds if we can spend 30 minutes talking about a financial aid award letter.
I know, I know, I know, I know.
Might have to check ourselves there. It's not good for our street cred. Again, these things are confusing. There's a reason why we're talking about them. There's a reason why, because again, we've seen the real life studies where people have accepted this award at UC Davis. They think they're going for free. They find out when it's too late that in fact it's going to be $70,000. You were just off by 70,000, right? Times 4 years. These things do matter. Again, us make it easy on you. Upload your awards into the platform, mycap.collegeaidpro.com. We will translate it, right? So it's very easy to understand. We'll put all your awards into one uniform letter so you can compare apples to apples, and then we'll tell you, did you get a good deal? Where can you go back and get more money? Because obviously, and we're going to be talking about it in subsequent weeks like we do all the time. Okay, we got the award letter. Now, how do we go back and do better? Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of my summary. You got any closing thoughts, Peggy?
It's just wait for that financial aid award letter, upload it into our software. We'll help you figure out what it means. And then you start thinking about appealing, which is what we're going to be talking about throughout this month. And I'm super excited. We will have Mike Hinderman on. I will be chatting with him next week about merit scholarships and appealing merit scholarships. Yes, you can appeal merit scholarships. He is the director of scholarships at University of Oklahoma, so at OU, and super excited to have him on. It's just nice. You guys will get a behind the scenes look. What is really going on at the colleges, how they look at this, and every school's different, but it's always great. We've been around the block for years and years, but we're on the other side of the curtain, right? So we want to show you and give you insights from somebody who's actually there. So, definitely tune in for that next week.
Yeah, Mike's a great guy. You'll love hearing his perspective. And again, from that side of the desk is just invaluable information to kind of see, hey, he's going to allow you to get in kind of their heads as you guys go through this and try to get a better merit-based scholarship than you did initially, right?
Yeah,
All right, Peggy,
absolutely.
appreciate you as always. Appreciate all you guys, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye. Okay, thank you for joining Old College Try, the podcast. Today I was joined by my co-host, the fairy godmother of financial aid, Peggy Keough. As always, this has been produced and edited by Eileen Campbell. If you got anything out of today, please like us, please follow us, please share us. We'll see you next week.